Okay, hello. Welcome to our virtual history and politics presentation. The idea tonight is we're going to take you through both of the courses we do here. And obviously both courses are available at Haywards Heath College and at Worthing College. And our job today is to explain those courses, give some details on those, explain the staffing and some of the facilities we have and the opportunities we offer, and also to introduce the staff. Okay, now there might be a slight lag on this as we wait for more and more people to join. Okay, the participants is gradually clicking up. So I will kind of fill a bit with some information until we actually start the presentation. So if you could be patient and just hang on. There are a few admin things. This will be recorded, okay? We have to tell you that. So just in case you're aware that that's the situation we're in, we're being recorded at the same time. We've got about half our participants on at the moment, so I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. Okay. The staff at the college you can see on the screen before you, and so I'll talk a little bit about those while we wait, and I might recap just the last people that join us in a second. Okay, so my name is Matthew Crawley, okay, and I lead history and politics at Worthing College. Okay, also at Worthing is Graham, who is also a history and politics teacher, and we're also fortunate to have Haywards Heath College with us as well. Unfortunately, Natasha is not with us, but she leads history, but we've also got Charlie, who is our politics teacher up at Haywards Heath. Okay, and the courses we're going to talk about this evening are exactly the same at both colleges. So if you are a Haywards Heath student or parent or Worthing, then the information is the same for both. So there shouldn't be any issue with a crossover there. And any questions you ask, and between the three of us, we'll pick them up. If they are specific to Haywards Heath, then Charlie will field those questions at the end. And if you can hang on to the end, well, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the slides in a second. So I think we're nearly full of our participants. I'll just give another 30 seconds. And I'll introduce the courses. I'll also hand over to Graham at some stage, who will talk about the politics. I'm going to talk about the history. And then at the end, Charlie is going to run our question session, and he might direct some questions back at me or back at Graham. And that will be towards the end of the session. Okay, right, I think we're probably going to get going now and go through the courses. Okay, right, okay, so next slide, please. Okay, right, so just to give you a brief overview before we get into more detail, I'm here tonight to talk to you about two courses, our History A-Level and our Politics A-Level, and the pictures give you a bit of a giveaway there. Obviously, we can only put a few pictures on the screen. It's a bit of a shame because they're such rich courses, we could sell them with a lot more images, because that's one of the good things about these two subjects. The politics course are the top pictures. So obviously you'll be watching the news tonight. There's an election taking place in the United States. So we cover American politics. Donald might well be president by the end of the week. We're not really sure yet. And at the bottom of the screen, Boris is the clue that obviously we do the UK as well. And so the politics course covers a 2-year course, and it is the USA in the second year and the UK in the first year. Okay, the other pictures are to do with the history course, okay, and just to give you a brief overview, we do Russia and Britain, and the images you may well have guessed, the one in the middle is about the Bolshevik Revolution and the end of the Tsars. The one on the left is about how they then become a communist state, and then Margaret Thatcher is obviously not involved in the Russian Revolution, but the other half of the course is Britain, and so we then deal with Britain from the 1950s onwards, which I'll now go into a bit more detail on the next slide, please. Okay, right, so I'm going to talk to you about history, and then the following slide will be politics, and I'll hand over to Graham. Okay, right, so the history course at the college, and both colleges are carrying the same course. Okay, so please remember that what I'm saying now about Worthing College is exactly applicable to Haywards Heath, is we start off in year one doing the Russia unit, okay, and the Russia unit starts with dealing with the Tsars. The reason we do the Tsars is because a lot of the schools in Worthing, a lot of the schools in West Sussex do cover Russia at GCSE. And what we try and aim to do is give A-level students an opportunity to pick up something they're slightly familiar with. Okay, it is different from GCSE in a lot of ways, but it does attract students because they'll say, oh, so I've done the Russian Revolution, or I've done Nicholas II at GCSE, because it's very common. However, you may have noticed that we actually start a bit earlier than that. Most GCSEs start with Nicholas II, which is the 20th century, and we start in 1855. So we deal with 3 Tsars, okay, building up to the revolution. So they're slightly different. So it's a nice blend there between, there is new stuff because we'll be doing Tsars that most students have not seen before, but we also then go over familiar territory with Nicholas II and the Bolshevik Revolution. Okay, so it's got a nice blend there with that. We carry that course right up until Christmas, and we finish on the Bolshevik Revolution at the end of World War I and the downfall of the Romanov dynasty, which, as I said, students are quite familiar with by that stage. Okay. We then stop the Russia course, okay, and then we actually start the Britain course in January, which we then carry through until the start of the summer term. Okay. Now, the reason we do that, it's not that complicated. It's the fact that there is actually an exam at the end of the year. It's an internal exam, but some students choose to do the AS, and we want them to be able to do both Britain and Russia so they could get through that exam. So that's why we break the course into two like that. And also it's to do with the skills development, developing through that first year. Then we pick up the two topics again in year 2. So in this January term onwards, we're looking at Britain, and that's a very, very modern course, and it's quite unusual. A lot of students will not have seen that at GCSE, okay? And that's why we chose it. The idea behind that, again, is that it's something new. So some students don't want to do an A-level if they've done all the topics before, but they're looking for a bit of familiarity. Okay, so the Russia will deliver that, whereas the Britain won't. It's very unusual for a GCSE course to cover those periods, okay? So the actual course we do starts in the 1950s, and it goes through in kind of 3 areas, okay? It looks at history through political, social, and economic chunks, basically, and so does the Russia course. So with the Britain course, it does some really nice stuff on society. So it looks at things like youth culture in the 1950s and develops into the 60s and how that develops, things like second wave feminism, then goes into the 70s and 80s, looking at how society changes right up to modern times, right up to the time of Tony Blair. So it's a very contemporary course. It also looks at political change, so it looks at prime ministers, and it tends to focus on those. So it starts with Macmillan in the 50s, goes on to do Wilson in the 60s, and then it goes on to do Thatcher, which a lot of students really enjoy the Thatcher part of the course. Okay, and then it goes on to look at right up again to Blair's government as well. Okay, and finishing with Gordon Brown. Okay, so it's very much up to date. And then the economic side of the course, it deals with obviously the economy, but it deals with the kind of booming period of the 50s, and then how it all starts to slow down in the 60s and 70s. And then when Thatcher comes into power, it really looks at how she transformed the economy under her kind of ideas of Thatcherism. So it's got a nice blend. It's a really sound A-level to do because it has political, economic, and social history. And if you're going to pursue history at A-level and beyond to degree level, then that's the same sort of basis that you would have for that. Okay. At the end of the course, okay, we do an internal exam at the end of year 1. There is an opportunity to do the AS exam, okay, which is 40% of the full course. Not many students do that. Okay, they tend to do the whole 2 years, okay, because we're a big A-level, and the topics that we choose, we get a real big cohort, and we also get a really good mixture of male and female. Some history courses don't always do that. We actually get a 50-50 split. So we're quite proud of the numbers we get at Worthing. We're hoping at Hayward Heath that will obviously continue with the opportunity they've got with starting a new course at a new college. Okay, in year 2, they then carry on with the course and they pick up Britain again, and they do the second half of the Britain course, taking them up to the Tony Blair and the Thatcher period. And in the January part onwards in year 2, they then complete the Russia course. Okay, right, so that's the actual taught course. Okay, at the end of that period, they then sit 2 exams. Okay, and the exams are essay based, so you have to be good on your essays. You have to write essays. Obviously, we coach and help you with those. And we also do work with evidence source work, which again is essay based. Okay, so 2 big exams at the end of year 2 get you through the course. There is also, however, a coursework option which we do, which is 20%. Now we do the coursework option, we do it at the end of year 1 in the summer term, okay, because by that stage, you've got your skills up to scratch, you're working really well, you're confident in your writing, and we get you to your first draft of your coursework. We then get you to a second draft in the autumn term, okay, and over the summer holidays, and we're now collecting it at the moment. Okay, now the topic for that is the US Civil War, and the reason we do the US Civil War is because it's something completely different. Okay, we've never found a student that's done that before. Okay, so the reason we have that is it's completely unique, and it makes up 20% of the exam, and it is an essay, but it does include source work. It includes looking at historians. It's a really good piece of academic work to produce. Okay, anyone applying to university to do history, they're always quite interested in what you've done in your coursework because it is a proper test of your historical skills. Okay, it's 20% of the total grade. Okay, for the coursework. Okay, right. I think I've probably covered all the main points of history. So I'm now going to pass over to Graham, who works at Worthing. Okay, and he's going to talk about the politics course, but obviously keep stressing to you that politics course is exactly the same at Worthing as is at Haywards Heath. So the details for either are going to be the same. So if I go to the next slide, please, and hand over to Graham.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, everyone. As with history, politics is the same course at both Worthing and at Haywards Heath. So what I'll describe here is exactly the same at Haywards Heath as well as at Worthing. So it's a 2-year course, and the first year is devoted to UK politics. So you'll have a chance to study all kinds of fascinating topics, and what a wonderful time to be studying politics, extraordinary time. In recent years, we've had Brexit, we've had multiple general elections in this country. It's wonderful to be teaching American politics this week particularly. So this week, for example, I'm about to start teaching presidential power at the time in which by tomorrow we may not know who is the president of the United States from January. So it's a fabulous time to be studying politics. The way it works, the politics course, is the first year is devoted to UK politics, and we'll study topics. For example, we study democracy, the nature of democracy. We study whether or not there's what we call a democratic deficit in UK politics, what can be done to improve democracy in the UK. We look at political parties, the major political parties in the UK and some of the minor parties as well. We look at their political thinking, we look at their policies, we look at various prime ministers and governments. We also look at the constitution of the UK, we look at how parliament works, and also we look at the power of the prime minister. So all kinds of fascinating topics to learning all kinds of things about the UK political system. Now, that's mirrored in the second year by the US course. So just as in the UK course, you study, for example, prime ministers, you'll study the president in the USA. You'll study parliament in the first year of the UK politics part of the course, but in the US section, you'll be studying Congress. So that's important to have that kind of mirroring of the course, because the third paper, there are 3 exam papers that you'll be studying for politics A-level. The third paper is a comparative paper, which requires you to compare the systems of the US and the UK. I should say that politics is 100% exam-based. There is no coursework, as there's 20% of coursework in history, but in politics, there is no coursework. It's based entirely on those 3 exams for the A-level at the end of the 2-year course. 3 papers, the first on UK, and you'll also be looking at political ideologies. The second paper looks at the UK government, the structures of government, and you'll also be looking at political ideology of feminism. And the third paper is looking at comparative politics, comparing the US and the UK system. So, as I said there, you'll also be studying political ideas. You'll be studying 4 main political ideas. You'll be studying socialism, you'll be studying conservatism, liberalism, and also feminism. So it's a really interesting course. You understand the nuts and bolts of the different political systems in the US and the UK, but you also have a sort of theoretical underpinning and concepts that you can apply as we study political ideas as an important part of the course as well. A key part of studying politics, and what makes it so interesting, is that it's really important to have an understanding of current affairs. So what's going on in the news will have direct links to what you're doing on your A-level, okay? The A-level absolutely helps you understand the often bewildering, changing, shifting political landscape, both in this country and also in the US. So it's really going to give you a deeper understanding of, you know, all the extraordinary events that are happening both in the US and the UK on the political scene. So it's really important that that you keep up with what's happening in the news. It enriches your experience of politics, and also examiners are going to be looking for that you can apply the most recent examples. So if you're talking about presidents, you have to have examples of political policies, political ideas relating to, you know, the most recent president or recent presidents. As I say, we don't know who that's going to be after January. It will either be Donald Trump or Joe Biden. We'll start possibly to get a more of a sense of that about midnight tonight when the Florida results start coming in. But we don't know at the moment. But you know, how wonderful that we can study these things that are changing all the time in politics. So 3 exams, no coursework. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so you've heard about history, you've heard about politics. Which should you choose? Well, and I would say this, wouldn't I? You should choose both, or you can choose both. Now, my argument for doing both is that if you compare and look at the content that Matt and I have described there in the two A levels at both Haywards Heath and at Worthing, you'll see there is some crossover there. So, for example, in history, you'll be studying Margaret Thatcher, you'll be studying Tony Blair. In politics, you will also come across Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher, and other key political figures. So you'll get a political understanding, you'll have a historical perspective, and actually that enriches both of the A levels. Now, you certainly do not have to do both, okay? It's not mandatory by any means, and lots of students just take one or the other and combine it with a multitude of different subjects. But students who take both politics and history really do feel they benefit from that. It sort of deepens their understanding. You're not repeating material. Actually, you're enriching your understanding of political history by studying politics and vice versa. So that's something to think about. Many students just take one or the other, but they work really well as a combination. So I think that's something worth thinking about as well. Okay, come to the next slide, please. Okay, so where does politics and where does history lead you after the A level? Well, the wonderful thing about both history and politics is that they're respected A levels. They are, held in very good light by universities and by employers. Now, both history and politics teach you key skills that employers are looking for. You learn evaluation, you learn analysis, you learn skills of discussion and debate, you learn communication, really, really important skills. And also you're weighing up evidence in order to reach a judgment. They're really, really important skills that apply to many jobs. At university, many students go on to study history or politics at university. Other university degrees that would be a good fit if you've studied history and or politics at A level. You can see them on the screen there. Law is an obvious one. Again, those skills, discussion, debate, weighing up evidence, reaching judgments, communication, arguing and discussing, really important skills there. But there's all kinds of A levels that all kinds of degrees that these A levels lead to, as you can see there on the screen. Careers as well. All kinds of careers you can go into. If you study history or politics, you can go into the civil service, for example. Journalism is another popular route, again, to do both politics and history. You're learning important skills of communication in writing as well. You're learning important research skills. Again, all of this lends itself really well to these types of jobs. So there's a huge list of jobs because the A levels are very well respected, and they don't close off any career paths at all, but they open up many. So history and politics are really useful and really looked upon very favorably by employers because of those skills you're learning throughout the A level. Okay, so I'm going to hand back to Matt now, who's going to talk to you about the facilities at both Haywards Heath and at Worthing College.
Okay, right, thank you very much, Graham. Okay, right, so the facilities at both colleges, okay, the subjects have their own classrooms designated to them. So your history is a history classroom, and there's also a politics classroom. Okay, within those classrooms, there are resources, there are sort of periodical magazines, there's textbooks and things we use. They've all got interactive whiteboards, okay. There are displays that are quite up to date. So at the moment, we've got displays on things like the US election and things about Boris Johnson as well. So we try and keep them up to date, although it's quite a battle at times in politics, but we do have kind of current ideas about putting stuff on the walls to make it a bit more interactive. Okay, now classroom learning and techniques, all of our lessons are actually online, so they can be accessed through the Moodle site. So everything we actually teach is actually done through that actual channel. However, that doesn't really tell you what lessons are like. So a range of techniques are used within the classroom, okay? So sometimes it is teacher explanation at the front, making notes off the board. It's A level, it's an academic subject. We do have to impart information, but that's not the sole way we teach. We do group work, we do things like Padlet, where students actually can use their phones to post information conversation, about debates we're having. Every subject and every lesson in history and politics does involve debate, and we try our hardest to try and get those debates going and get students to get involved in those kind of conversations about things. So, for example, the US presidential election at the moment, or the government and the reaction to the pandemic, all rich subjects, okay, within politics to talk about at the moment. And we try and get as much kind of conversation going about that as possible. And we do engage with new technology. And at the moment, with the kind of situation teaching as well, we've really upped our game as well and using technology to engage with students that are learning from home at the moment. Our classes aren't all in all the time. And that's been obviously challenging, but it's given us an opportunity to really find out about the rich resources that we can use with ICT to do that. Okay, we have experienced A-level examiners. Okay, we have a politics examiner who's experienced in marking. It's a new spec, so that's a great resource to have. It's only been out for 2 or 3 years, so it's really good that we've got insight with that. And with most colleges, obviously, we have a very rich library full of resources and periodicals and magazines. A lot of the resources now are going online, but the library is a rich resource that students use. It's also a great space to go and work in. Okay, it's a big resource at both colleges, so it's something that students become very adept to using. Okay, other facilities which we put in, I'm not sure it really fits on the facilities, but I put it into this slide, is that we do have a lot of contact locally with politics in particular. A lot of potential politicians are very interested in meeting with our students and kind of engaging with them. So over the last few years, just for some examples, we have regular visits from MPs. The Worthing MPs come in, and I'm sure Haywards Heath will be adopting a similar approach and getting local MPs in. At the time of general elections, we have candidates come in and talk to us. Okay, we've even held hustings here where we've had all the candidates here for the general election. So the last general election, we had all the parties represented, and we had them in doing a hustings event. Okay, we also get just local party representatives coming in, people that aren't necessarily running in elections but are party activists, and they come and talk to us as well. Okay, we did have a coup a few years ago where we went and attended Radio 4 Any Questions, and then eventually we invited them in and they came to us. Okay, so we actually hosted Radio 4 Any Questions on a Friday evening that went out live to a Radio 4 audience, and then we had some big hitting people like Lord Adonis come in and talk to us about local issues and things in the news that week, and that was a real coup for the college, and students took part in that debate. It was quite awe-inspiring at times to see these people in the college and engaging with us. So I hope that's something we can build, okay, and hopefully Haywards Heath as well will start to have similar sort of activities taking place. We also have some amazing success stories, which are kind of resources or facilities, we're calling ex-students resources, but we have several students that now work in politics. So for example, a local MP in Worthing, he employs an ex-A-level politics student and historian as well, and we have contact with him. And when we visit Parliament, we meet with him and he talks to our students as well. And he did plan to come in, but obviously circumstances made that a bit difficult. But he's a great resource as well. And the 2 local MPs have done a good job in supporting the college. So hopefully Haywards Heath will follow in that path as well. Okay, there is a scheme where you can actually make contact with the House of Lords and a Lord will come and visit you. Okay, we haven't quite managed to organise that because of the conditions at the moment, but that's something we're looking at. Okay, and obviously we do direct students into kind of lots of film and historical fiction that link to what we're talking about, so literature that will help them with their studies. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, right, now because we're a sixth form and we have older students here, we do really engage with student voice, and student voice is we just basically talk to the students and hear what they think about our courses. And because they're slightly older, they've been through GCSEs and they're doing A-levels with us, they're quite discerning, they are quite good at making judgments on what's going on in the classroom when they're learning, and it's a really valuable part of what we do here. So there are several points during the year where we use student voice, and there are some on the screen which you can browse through as I'm just sort of explaining how they work, and we capture those in various ways. Okay, each class and each subject, so for history and politics, there's actually a student rep, and we give them the chance to speak to students and they feed back through that. We also do other examples where we kind of have workshops in the past where students can talk to staff about, how's it going in your subjects, and they assess that. And that feeds into how we plan things. We do listen to that voice and we do try and follow up on those kind of points that they make. And it is shaped by what we do. So for example, in the last year or two, we've redesigned how we give feedback on essays, and that came through student voice, where students said they wanted a bit more detail on how to actually improve their work, and so we listen to them and we do act on that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, right. Now, I've kind of covered a few of these before, but there's lots of enrichment things that we do as well. Because the subjects are so wealthy with those kind of opportunities, there's quite a lot of opportunity here. So I won't go through the list because you can read that, but just to throw a few highlights on there. There is an extra kind of course you can do called the EPQ, the Extended Project, which you may have heard of. And a lot of our history and politics students do pursue that. And the reason is because, one, it's a big essay and it involves a lot of research. So it lends itself perfectly to the skills that we teach in history and politics. You can choose any topic you like. Okay, so we've had ones in the past on North Korea, we've had ones on Donald Trump. So politics and history, if you're a strong writer, which you should be really if you're doing A-level history and politics, and you've got something else you want to investigate, it's an opportunity to do that. You have to make a presentation. The students find it quite hard work, but it's very rewarding, and it's something recognised by universities. You know, you've done something extra beyond your A levels, and even if it's not a university application, anything, an apprenticeship like that, that shows you've gone the extra mile. And we do have quite a lot of pick up with that with history and politics students because it does suit their skills. We've also, on a yearly basis, been involved with the Holocaust Education Trust, where students have the opportunity to visit Auschwitz. They also have to visit some workshops in London and then make a presentation to our students. That, again, has been really successful. We're normally oversubscribed with students want to take part in that. That's a great opportunity for them. And we also do quite a lot of work with students that are applying for Russell Group universities, a bit more ambitious, a bit more demanding in the application process. And we actually help students write their application and in some cases rehearse with them the interviews and the sort of questions they'll go through. And that's a really enjoyable part of the job because they're very challenging to do. And it's good to see students stepping up, and I think staff as well. It's quite challenging for us to try and get our head around that process and support them in that, but it's a really enjoyable part of the job. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, trips wise, obviously at the moment, circumstances mean it's not been that easy, okay, but every year we have been to the Houses of Parliament. As I've mentioned before, we do have contact with MPs and they come here. And when we visit Parliament, we normally go on a tour of both houses. We normally meet at least one of our MPs, if not both, okay. We also go across the road to the Supreme Court, have a wander around in there, which is a part of the politics course, so that's really helpful for that part of the unit as well. We also have attended revision lectures when they've been available, where students can kind of get a boost to their knowledge moving up to the exam size. We have some ambitious plans perhaps for a trip to Russia. Not quite got that off the ground yet, and it might take a while to organise that one, but it's something we would never, turn our back on because it's a great opportunity to do that, and it really fit with the history course as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, finally, okay, right. There are some questions that have come up that are frequently asked, which we put into this PowerPoint, which obviously you can read as I explain it. But it's an opportunity now for you to field any questions. And Charlie is going to go through some of them, and hopefully between the three of us, we can give you some answers. So if you can give us a question, please, Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So I think I'll just go through some of the ones here that I've kind of left open for you two here. So one that I've got is, how much economics do you usually find within the history courses that you offer?
Okay, right. If I go for that, right. Okay, so if we look at a unit of 6 lessons, okay, and lessons here are 2 hours long, and you have 4 hours a week. Within a six lessons of history, you would probably find there will be 2 on the political, 2 on the economic, and 2 on the social. Okay, we tend to do that pattern. It's not always that consistently done, but it's pretty well balanced. Okay, the economic side of it is not economics A level. Okay, it's not to that amount of depth, but you do have to have an understanding of how a government funds things, and about ideas about how much money is put into public service in the public sector, how much goes into welfare. So, for example, if you're studying Thatcher, she makes quite big changes to that, but that's only really 2 lessons. So it's not a huge part. So 2 lessons is 4 hours, and that will be balanced by another 4 hours doing social history, another 4 doing political history. Okay, it's quite a challenging part of the course, but those demands are good, but it is balanced with the other parts of the course.
Thank you, Matt. Next one is, what are the usual class sizes for politics and history?
Okay, I'm being a bit greedy with the questions here. I'll take this one. I'm going to field some others. Okay, right. So we're popular. Okay, we have big numbers. Okay, taking the subject, and a typical class size over the last 3 or 4 years will probably be about 18 students we have in a class for both subjects. Okay, there is slightly varies at times. Okay, but that's probably going to be our average on that.
Thank you, Matt. I think I'll just go through some of the other ones that I've already answered as well to make sure that everyone can at least see those answers. Okay. So there's been a couple of themes throughout, such as the ones that are on the slide here. So I've got a few questions on whether you've had to have studied these subjects before. No, you don't need to have done these at a GCSE, sorry, but an interest within them and the world affairs is suitable, so you're able to engage with the content within those two topics. And in terms of entry requirements, there are 5 GCSEs at the pass level, so level 4 or above, which does include the GCSE English at a minimum of a grade 4. Okay. As well, the other question that's on the slides there, so which subjects go well with history and politics? I've got that one a few times on there as well. So all other subjects can combine well with history and politics, which are high valued at A level. So some typical combinations that you could see is, for example, history, politics with the English, law, sociology, and many students do end up studying both history and politics, or at least one or the other. Let's have a look here and see what else I've got. Oh, so I did answer one. So how long are both of the exams at the end of the course? The politics exams are 2 hours long with the 3 papers, but I wasn't sure how long the history ones are. Matt or Graham, if you could answer me that.
Yeah, shall I answer that one, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, the history exam, there are 2 papers. So there's the Russian paper and there's the paper on modern Britain, and they're both 2.5 hours long, both of those papers. And then in addition to that, you have the coursework, which makes up, as Matt said, it makes up 20% of the A level, and that's up to 4,500 words for that. Okay, between 3,000 and 4,500 words. So, yeah, so 2.5 hours for the 2 exam papers, and as Charlie says, politics 3 times 2 hours across the 3 papers.
Yep, thank you. So let's see what else we've got. Is there any work set before you start colleges? Yes, there are a getting ready for packs, which you will receive. They're sent to students over the summer, and it's just a bit of work that will give you an introduction into your courses, and that will apply for both politics and history. I thought this one was quite interesting as well. So if you study politics, are you encouraged to promote your own beliefs? No, not necessarily, but at least if you're engaging with the content and discussing well, then that means everything's going to be great in your politics classes. So I think I'll hand over to Matt to finish that off.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Charlie and Graham. Thank you very much for your help with that. I think that's probably all the questions covered now. And so I guess we're going to finish now. Thank you very much for listening to our History and Politics presentation.